to the family of Pa Cole Ajayi and Madam Adebisi Clementina Adeboyejo, both of blessed memory, of Ilupai Isonye in Ijebu North-East local government area of Ogun State, Nigeria. Young Thompson had his elementary education at the Emmanuel Anglican Primary School, Isonye, Ogun State, between 1967 and 1972. He started his secondary education at the Isonye Grammar School, Isonye, Ogun State, in 1973, before proceeding to Lokoja to complete his secondary education at the Crowther Memorial College, Lokoja, Kogi State, in 1979. He was trained as a teacher at the then Federal Advanced Teachers College, now Federal College of Education, Okene, Kogi State, between 1980 and 1983. Following the completion of his mandatory one-year NYC program at Government Day Secondary School, Maraba Kubau, in Kaduna State, his quest for higher education took him to the prestigious University of Ibadan in 1984. And in record time, he earned a BSc Honours degree in Geography in 1987 with second class upper division. Somebody should please give a clap of it. Second class upper division. A master's degree in urban geography in 1988. And a PhD degree in urban and regional planning development in 1994. All in a quick succession. Thompson's illustrious academic career, which started as teaching assistant at the widely acclaimed Department of Geography, University of Ibadan in 1990, was boosted by his employment as lecturer 2 in the Department of Urban and Regional Planning of this great university in 1994. By dint of hard work, he was promoted to the rank of a professor in the year 2010. He was also appointed a visiting professor at the Department of Urban and Regional Planning at the University of Venda, Tohoyadu, Limpopo Province of South Africa in 2009 to 2010. The gentleman standing before you has served the university in several capacities with remarkable successes at departmental, faculty, and university levels. He has notably distinguished himself as chairman, LAUTECH Project Siting Committee, 2013 to 2018. Chairman, University Committee on Structure Plan in 2010. Representative of the postgraduate school on the panels of postgraduate examinations of many faculties in the university. He is currently the chairman, Governing Council of the LAUTECH Interdenominational Chapel and the LAUTECH Christian Community. Professor Adeboyejo has successfully supervised many PhD theses, both within and outside Nigeria, with several master's and undergraduate research projects to his credit. He is an external examiner for several top universities in Nigeria, like Obafemi Awolowo University, University of Ibadan, and Orange Free State University, South Africa, among many others. Professor Adeboyejo has made outstanding contributions to research These are contained in over 90 publications, most of which are in reputable, high-impact international journals. In addition, he has contributed to chapters in books. He is a listed member of the African Scientists in the 2020 Directory of Global Scientific Community. This distinguished scholar is a recipient of many honors in various academic, professional, and administrative fields, both at the national and international levels, some of which are Grand Award for Productivity in Africa in 2008 by the Resource Magazine, Head of Department of the Best Planning School in Nigeria in 2008, Laureate, Council for Development of Social Science Research in Africa, Laureate, Union of African Population 1998 Small Grants Program, University of Vendors Vice Chancellor Award of Excellence in Research, which he won consecutively back-to-back in 2010 and 2011. And of course, the University of Vendor Travel Award to University of Queensland, Australia in July 2010. Professor Adeboyejo is widely traveled. Professor Adeboyejo holds membership in several learned societies and research institutes. He is a registered town planner with Town Planners Registration Council of Nigeria, a corporate member, Nigerian Institute of Town Planners, member, Union of African Population Studies, member, Population Environment Research Network, member, International Society for Environmental Geotechnology, Research Fellow, Center for Econometric and Allied Research, University of Ibadan Research Associate, Center for African Settlement Studies and Development, Research Consultant, Land and Nature Study Center, among several others. Behind every successful inaugural lecturer is a very happy, iconic, and supportive soulmate. Professor Adeboyejo is happily married to Mrs. Olufunke Christiana Adeboyejo. And the marriage is blessed with two wonderful children, Toluwanimi and Oluwafiyesimi. Ladies and gentlemen, let us welcome Professor Thompson Adeboyejo as he presents the 39th inaugural lecture of this record-setting university. Thank you.
The Vice Chancellor, Deputy Vice Chancellor, members of the Governing Council, principal officers of the university, provosts and deans of faculties, dean postgraduate school, dean faculty of environmental sciences, senate members of the university, head of department of urban and regional planning, colleagues, staff and students of the university, my Lord spiritual and temporal, distinguished guests, gentlemen of the press, ladies and gentlemen. With supreme gratitude to the Almighty God, I feel highly honored and strongly delighted to stand before you today to deliver this inaugural lecture, the fourth from the Faculty of Environmental Sciences and the third from the Department of Urban and Regional Planning. I sincerely appreciate the authority of the LAUTECH Akintola University of Technology, ably led by the Vice Chancellor, Professor Michael Olufisa Ologunde, for this unique opportunity. This inaugural lecture to me is of both scientific and practical importance, Scientifically, it is an opportunity to inform the scientific community and the general public of my research work to date. The practical importance of the lecture stems from the fact that it marks both my sister's birthday and 30th wedding anniversary. I'm eternally grateful to the Almighty God for making me what I am today. Although I am the ninth in an extremely poor polygamous family of 12 children, but the first to have secondary school education, and the only one to have all available university degrees, I am therefore not only the first professor from my nuclear and extended families, but also the first of such from my village, Ilupa Viaishoyin, in the Ijebu Northeast local government area of Ogun State. I am therefore whom I am, only by His divine grace. This feat and everything that has come with it could be attributed to a divine arrangement. It was the miraculous discovery of a 5 pence or 5 kobo coin being proceeds from the sale of firewood that my mother misplaced, and my act of faithfulness that gave me the opportunity to purchase a secondary school admission form a day to the closing date. I was hanging on the lintel of my mother's room one sunny afternoon, playfully sweeping the flat side with my hand. Suddenly I felt a solid coin-like object, which I quickly picked up. The layers of dust it had gathered over time concealed its usefulness for any purpose. I continued to rub off the dust until the shining portion emerged progressively. It turned out to be a spendable 5-penny coin. Rather than use the discovery to satisfy indulgence like granite, as common with children of that age, I rushed to go and show it to my mother. She was so grateful for my act of faithfulness and without hesitation concluded that I should use the money to obtain the secondary school admission form for which I had been disturbing my poor parents without any positive response. Without the discovery and the decision to hand over the coin, my poor parents would not have been able to afford the admission form for my secondary school education, and I won't be here addressing this gathering today. Meanwhile, the purchase of the admission form, which was unheard of in a very poor family, soon created serious tension with my father, who became so worried about the financial implications of secondary school education. God used an uncle, the then secondary school librarian, late Mr. Alaba Olugbuyi, the school matron, and one of my brothers, late Ebenezer Adewumi, to see me through secondary school education. Brother Ebenezer went a step further to support me through Advanced Teachers College, now Federal College of Education, Okene, in present-day Kogi State, for my Nigerian certificate in education, where I major in history and geography, a combination I chose alongside my friend, Pastor Adekule Joshua Adeniro, who inspired me and with whom I completed the admission form. My background in history and geography at the College of Education prepared me for specialization in urban geography at the university level and thereafter in urban and regional development. This has also shaped and sharpened my research focus along urban systems and growth and the implications for lives in the cities and regional economic development issues. The title of my lecture, Our Cities, Yesterday, Today, and Tomorrow, stems from these linkages. After this introduction, Mr. Vice Chancellor, sir, in this lecture, I have to discuss the above linkages under the following headings: Introduction, theoretical basis of my research activities; 2, 3, conceptualizing city and city systems; 4, the global context of city development in Nigeria; 5, urban population growth in Nigeria, a tale of 3 cities; 6, spatial extension of Nigerian cities, the case of Ogbomoso, Ibadan, and the FCT; 7, implications of rapid city growth; 8, systems analysis and systems of cities, a methodological application; 9, city systems development, a stochastic modeling; 10, our cities today, sustainability issues; 11, how inclusive, productive, and resilient are our cities; 12, my studies on urban home environment, climate change, and urban health; 13, our cities of tomorrow, challenges, visions, and way forward; 14, conclusion; 15, recommendations, and 16, acknowledgement. 2, theoretical basis of my research activities. There are 2 major theoretical perspectives that have guided my research activities in the area of urban and regional development. The first theoretical basis conceives the city as a system within systems of cities in a regional landscape. I argue that the city is not only a complex entity, but also convoluted social organism to understand and study. Also, it is not a static phenomenon, but constantly evolving and changing in response to equally complex and changing socioeconomic, political, and environmental forces. Quite puzzling as this sounds, the implications of the above on the people, the objects of planning, are equally puzzling. Therefore, to understand the numerous issues relating to urban growth, development, and functioning, a systemic framework of analysis, which is a derivative of the natural science methodology, is very attractive as an alternative paradigm for understanding, analyzing, and planning the city and city systems in their regional context. This view allows for a consideration of urban issues within the systems analysis framework and has underpinned my research in the areas of population and urban growth, evolution and development of cities, and the dynamism of urban areas and their functions. Second theoretical basis views physical planning structure as an outcome of scientific planning procedure, which provides a smoothing or constraining framework for the people, particularly with respect to their living and construction of livelihoods. Thus, for the purpose of sustainable urban and regional development planning, it is argued that there is need to examine the influence of physical planning decisions on the people where they live in the cities, that is the residential densities or neighborhoods, and rural locale, so as to formulate policies that will inform refinements of planning instruments, and by so doing, build modernism and dynamism into physical planning. This latter theoretical standpoint has inspired my research activities into the nexus between residential home environment and such issues as vulnerable people's health, the effects on people's health-seeking behavior and health outcomes, as well as cities and climate change. These two theoretical perspectives have given birth to an emerging school of thought known as ADEBOYEJO Planning School. Parts of the activities are reported later. The first question we need to ask is, what is a city? The meaning of a city, we are so familiar with it that apparently needs no definition, but a closer look actually reveals the difficulties that will be encountered. We begin from known to unknown by looking at the classical definition provided by Walter Cristalla in 1933, who regards city, or as he called it, central place, as a point in space where trading economy takes place. Agbola 2013 reported UN Habitat's recent effort, which collated 120 definitions and characterizations of a city as provided by different scholars. The definitions were in response to a question of, what is a city to you? Today, we can say that there are as many definitions as there are megacities in the world. These various definitions and characterizations reminds me of the popular folk tales about the community of blind men and the elephant. The elephant was placed in the middle of the community of blind men, and each was asked to touch and describe what he or she felt. The one who touched the tail said it was a long rope. The one who swept the body with his hand said it was a wall of flesh, while the one that touched the tusk said it's a big stone. These blind men and women are the practitioners and scholars and professionals in the field of the giant called the city. Defining a city is akin to the various descriptions and perceptions of a complex entity and representation of each scholar's opinion on the nature, structure, functioning, or expected roles and responsibilities of a city. I assure you that the number of available definitions will double if every one of you here gives me answer to this question. What is a city to you? Kindly help me ask your neighbor, what is a city to you? I will briefly attempt this definition from the point of view of a professional town planner operating within the systems analysis framework. According to ADEBOYEJO 2013, cities are spatial foundations for the continuous but controllable aggregation of people and articulation of resources. Within a nation, I argue, or its sub-region, each city is a system interacting with other systems of cities, thereby creating a complex and convoluted pattern mediated by equally complex, if not more complicated forces. The city as a system is affected by so many forces, including political forces, environmental forces, cultural forces, economic forces, social forces, and physical forces. All these also influence the city system. According to ADEBOYEJO 2013, the initial locations of our cities are often sporadic, and their growth and development haphazard, being not planned. Our cities, Nigerian cities, are monumental sociocultural artifacts which are unremittingly and hastily evolving in response to natural impulse and accidental socioeconomic and political opportunities. Nigerian cities are numerically strong, rapidly growing, sprawling, and forming a dense network of partially interconnected and loosely integrated economic systems. But currently, they appear economically weak and may even be declining in real terms to fulfilling the immediate and long-term goals and aspirations of city dwellers. Their current and future state are still largely governed in a sometimes subtle but constant way by dynamics that trace back to their primordial constitution and colonial legacy. A trajectory of current morphology of our cities reveals the image of a dinosaur in rapid motion but without specific direction. I hereby make a case for the urgent need to reconceptualize the future of Nigerian cities, the future of physical planning, and the physical planning of the future. To move this presentation from mere abstraction to concrete issues, let me situate the argument here in a familiar ground of urbanization and urban development. 4. The global context of city development in Nigeria. Precipitous growth of cities is not peculiar to Nigeria. Cities across the world evolve in their sizes and contributions to regional development. The peculiarity of the Nigerian cities, however, is with their rate of growth. While Africa is the most urbanizing region in the world, Nigeria is the greatest contributor to the towering urbanization profile of Africa. ADEBOYEJO 1988, 1994, and 2003 observed that Nigeria's primacy in contributing to impulsive global urbanization stems from the following 4 premises. 1. Unlike most African countries, urbanization as a way of life in Nigeria predates European colonization of the country. Such cities as Sokoto, Kano, Borno in the north, Onitsha, Aba in the east, Ife, Ogbomoso, Ibadan in the southwest have been centers of great population concentration before the colonial administration or colonization of the country. With Nigeria's population at about 20% of the total population of sub-Saharan Africa, 1 in every 5 sub-Saharan Africans is a Nigerian. Secondly, Nigeria, with a total population of over 206 million people, is currently the most populous nation in Africa and the 7th most populated country in the world, according to Worldometer 2020, Medioros 2020, UN 2019b. Nigeria's population is about twice the size of Ethiopia, which is the 2nd largest country in Africa, and more than double the size of Egypt, the 3rd largest country in Africa. Nigeria is also about 3 times the population of South Africa, with a mid-2011 population of 51.8 million. Thirdly, while the total number of cities with population of 20,000 and above in Nigeria was just 56 in 1952, this increased by about 31% to 181 in 1963. There is, though, uncertainty about the number of cities with population of 20,000 and above since 1963, largely because there has not been acceptable census figure in the country. We, however, need no elaborate effort to prove that Nigeria today has the largest number of cities with a population of over 20,000 in Africa. Fourthly, with about 5.5% urban growth rate between 1980 and 1993, annual urban growth in Nigeria increased to about 5.8% in 2000, ranking Nigerian cities among the fastest growing in the world. In actual fact, annual growth rates for such cities as Lagos and Port Harcourt hovered around 10%. 5. Urban population growth in Nigeria, a tale of three cities. In order to highlight the high rate of city growth and urban expansion, as well as the associated environmental and planning implications and the challenges for future city development, we use three case studies of rapid urban growth and its associated environmental implications. These cities are Ogbomoso, Enugu, and Lagos. The first two, that is Ogbomoso and Enugu, are medium-sized cities. The former, that is Ogbomoso, a pre-colonial city, and the latter a colonial urban center. The third, Lagos, is the former federal capital of Nigeria, and the current economic hub of the country. Ogbomoso is the second largest city in Oyo State after Ibadan, the 12th largest in Nigeria, and 53rd largest in Africa in terms of population concentration. The city presents an interesting picture of rapid transition of Nigerian cities and a dramatic illustration of the possible impact and implications of city growth, particularly on the peri-urban areas. Table 1 shows the population of these cities since the middle of 19th century and the projections till 2050. From the table, according to Henry Townsend, a missionary who visited Ogbomoso in 1855, he gave a quantitative description and put the population of Ogbomoso by 1855 at 40,000. The city has steadily grown in size to the extent that in 1963, the population was, according to NPC, was 227,471. Projections from then till 2010 reveals that by 2010, Ogbomoso had reached the population mark of 1 million. Enugu, again, a colonial city, was just 3,170 by 1921, and it grew steadily, so that by 2014, we estimated the population of Enugu to be 1,025,000. And then the projection of the population of these cities, we see the implications. Although there are conflicting projected figures for Lagos, 24 million by 2020 according to Dung Wong et al., 2008, 15.8 million by 2025 according to WP 2010. The point is, the city Lagos has moved from being a mega city with 10 million inhabitants, to a meta city, conurbation with more than 20 million inhabitants, and is now a hyper city beyond the scale of mega city, and is comparable in size with such cities as Los Angeles, New York, and Tokyo, which according to UN 2012 respectively had 2011 population of 13.4 million, 20.4 million, and 37.2 million. The question is, does Lagos offer the quality of life that New York, Los Angeles, and Tokyo offer their citizens now? Or can we say those Nigerian cities that have reached the 1 million population mark, like Ogbomoso, offer a comparable quality of life for their inhabitants as their counterparts in developed countries? Put differently, I put it before you. If I give you the option of living in Ogbomoso or a smaller settlement in London, I know your choice. Mr. Vice Chancellor, sir, the need to make Nigerian cities offer the quality of life that their counterparts in developed countries offer their citizens is one of the essence of my research activities. This is the type of urban and regional development that we desire for our country. Having looked at the vertical increase in the sizes of these cities, we now highlight the spatial expansion of these cities. So spatial expansion of Nigerian cities, we look at Ogbomoso, Ibadan, and the Federal Capital Territory. The figure provides a visual impression of the built-up area of Ogbomoso in different time periods. We could see it expanding, and we projected the built-up area, and we are saying that by 2027, Aba will have become a community within Ogbomoso. Let's look at the quantitative impression. By 1914, the built-up area of Ogbomoso was just 139.2 hectares. It increased steadily, and as it increased, it continued to engulf fertile agricultural land, such that by 2010, Ogbomoso had engulfed 202.5 hectares of fertile agricultural land, and we projected that by 2027, a total of 744.18 hectares of agricultural land will have been engulfed by Ogbomoso. The next figure, we see the special growth of Ibadan between 1964 and 2016. In 1964, we could see the small portion that Ibadan occupied. It increased more than double by the next 20 years. That was by 1984, and it continued to increase. 2016, we could see that it has really expanded tremendously. What we are saying in essence is that based on observed annual growth rate of these cities, by the year 2027, Ogbomoso will have engulfed 4,827 hectares of agricultural land. Number two, based on the trend from 1981 to 2010, the projected built-up area of Ibadan by the year 2050 is 591,000 hectares. This implies that in about 30 years from now, Ibadan will have doubled its spatial estate. Number three, with the current rate of urban expansion, the built-up area of FCT in 2050 is projected to be 73,800 hectares. This implies that by 2050, about 50,000 hectares of fertile agricultural land will have been engulfed. Imagine what happens around major cities and smaller settlements in the country. My prediction, Mr. Vice Chancellor, sir, I now predict that in no distant future, the whole of the solid earth will have become built up without any space again for further expansion. This is based on simple logic. Since it is only just 29% of the earth's surface that is habitable, with remaining 71% covered by ocean, rivers, and ice, the expansion of cities and other settlements is increasing at increasing rates. If supply of land is inelastic and consumption of available land is increasing, the end result is a fulfillment of the above prophecy. Disturbing evidences are: one, already some cities like Lagos and cities in European countries with limited land supply are fast becoming totally built up. Other micro evidences are seen in our various towns and villages of origin, where hitherto surrounding forests and vacant lands are fast disappearing, and in some cases have even disappeared and have been replaced by buildings. Many communities, families, and individuals are completely sold off or about to sell off their landed properties and are seeking to annex neighboring ones. Expect more communal clashes. The current search for habitable place in other planets by scientists from developed countries is they have envisaged that very soon no more space will be available on our planet Earth, and they're already looking for evidences of life in other planets. Once they discover that and there is no more space on Earth, they will all go there. However, the citizens in developing countries will not likely be able to go to Mars or Jupiter because they will not be able to afford the transport cost. Number 7, implications of rapid city growth. What are the socioeconomic implications? What is witnessed in our cities is increasing informalization of the urban economy as employment in the formal sector continues to decline in real terms. In Nigeria, urbanization is synonymous with a phenomenon I choose to describe as slumization of Nigerian cities. And I define it as a process whereby Nigerian cities are being transformed into slums through uncontrolled urban expansion and city sprawl and systematic decay of infrastructure and services where these are even available. 2, there is growing insecurity of lives and properties with increasing incidence, concentration, sophistication of crime, and widespread incidents of juvenile delinquency, child streetism, kidnapping, terrorism, ethno-religious crisis, ritual killings, among others. Urban dwellers live in anxiety and constant fear of loss of property and life. This has been observed to be consequent upon alienation, atomization, and isolation in urban areas. That's according to Guko and Adeboyejo 2013, 2014, and 2015. The need to prevent further development of slums and rehabilitate existing ones is one of the major challenges of urban management in Nigeria. Secondly, we look at the environmental implications, particularly the encroachment on relatively fertile agricultural hinterland in the peri-urban areas. Number 8, systems analysis and systems of cities, a methodological application. We begin by looking at the general usage of the term systems, which refers to a complex whole with recognizable objects which have attributes, according to Hall and Fagan, 1968. The components are functionally interrelated and characterized by mutual cooperation and dependency relationships. In a regional context, systems of cities refers to the set of settlements or aggregate of towns and cities. It includes the totality of activities in each settlement and the observed relationships of settlements with their surrounding areas. That is according to ADEBOYEJO 2013. Major attractions of the concept of city system to the analysis of multi-vector parameters and dynamic entities like cities are the following. 1. It provides a framework for monitoring the aggregate development and behavior of cities in a region. 2. It provides a linkage for studies that focus on the relationships between the region and its elemental spatial components, that is cities. 3. Such linkage makes possible an interdisciplinary methodological approach to the understanding of the processes operating in a system of cities. 4. It provides a framework for unraveling the web of interrelationships among cities in a region. In one of my earliest studies, ADEBOYEJO 2003, I apply a mathematical model of Markov chain to analyze the aggregate development of urban centers in a systemic framework. The model was originally developed by the Russian mathematician Andrei Markov in 1907 for studying processes of classical mechanics. 2. This follows the observation of a major deficiency in the literature on urban systems analysis, particularly the sad neglect of the fact that cities are dynamic, they continue to grow or decline, and also systemic entities, in the sense that different components of the city are interacting and depend on one another, just as each city is interacting with other cities in a region, and that we need to analyze and explain the complex web of interaction and interrelationships and interdependencies among cities within a region. The model Markov chain provides insight into processes of aggregate development which may not be readily attainable by conventional methods of analysis, particularly in the field of urban and regional planning. Mr. Vice Chancellor, sir, to the best of my knowledge, this is the first application of the technique in urban and regional planning. A stochastic modeling procedure. The model begins by first selecting 136 cities with a population of 20,000 plus by 1952 census in southwestern Nigeria. Then I took inventory of 45 functions for 3 time periods, 1967, 76, and 1991. The functions include industries, commercial activities, health, establishments, education. The logic is this. In environmental sciences or social sciences, some disciplines social sciences, where time series data are not even available, given the recency of origin, discontinuity, and non-reliability of nature of data in Africa generally, time series studies is difficult. So I now employ intertemporal dynamics, taking the same set of observations for the same set of events at 3 different or many different time periods, and applying the appropriate technology to analyze them. The fact analysis was first applied, followed by hierarchical cluster analysis to derive spatial states in 3 different periods. The 5 classes of cities derived at each period constitute finite Markov chain, in which S is equal to 1, 2, up to 5, which are the classes of cities in 1967, 1976, and 1991. Future distribution of power centers in the region is generated by powering the 1991 transition matrix. After 35 iterations, a steady state transition is reached. A state of equilibrium distribution of power centers will be attained by the year 2026 AD. The results and implications are the following. 1. The first and second order cities, which are Lagos and Ibadan, constitute the absorbing states of the regional urban systems and are therefore more stable than the lower order centers. 2. with no statistically significant difference between observed and predicted distribution of towns and cities, Markov chain as a rational accounting model of change is a valid tool for describing the transition pattern and distribution of cities in Southwest region. The predicted distribution of cities shows that less than 2% of the cities in the lowest order, including Ifon, Ilobu, will grow to the fourth order like Ogbomoso and third like Abeokuta order between 1991 and the year 2020. That is why today, these settlements that I've mentioned or cities that I've mentioned have not been able to attain the status of Ogbomoso or of Abeokuta. A major implication of the above is that the higher order centers, which are Lagos and Ibadan, have been dominating and will continue to dominate the regional economic landscape. These cities have emerged as economic enclaves in a special matrix of the depressed regional economy. Our cities today. Our cities are currently confronted with a plethora of growth and development issues. I'll briefly consider the above, around which my research activities have touched. The first question, how sustainable are our cities today? According to UNWCED 1987, the global view of the term sustainable development, which is development that meets the needs of the present generation without compromising the ability of future generations to meet their own needs. I argue that in the developing countries, greater attention will need to be focused on creating and maintaining necessary conditions in addition to the institutions and structures that will make cities good places to live and work in. According to ADEBOYEJO 1998, the term sustainable urban development in the context of developing countries, Nigeria in particular, means progressive improvement in the quality of human life and increasing functionality of urban infrastructure and services without prejudice to the city's ecological integrity. I argue further that emphasis should be placed on the people and their needs in the city. There must be also social equity in terms of access of the less privileged to the fundamental human needs and the need for functional urban infrastructure. Lifestyles in our urban and rural sites of life. How sustainable are they? What is lifestyle? According to ADEBOYEJO 2011A, lifestyle is a continuum in which the rural and urban lifestyles are two extremes. While rural lifestyle is essentially land-based or land-related culture, urban lifestyle is marked with varying scope and content of assets, including ownership of means of production, movable and disposable assets, and with living as well as livelihood revolving around residential home, work, or business and recreation. Sustainable lifestyle, therefore, according to ADEBOYEJO 2011B, defines sustainable lifestyle in different urban and rural sites of life as a way of life that minimizes the use of energy, water, and food, as well as waste output of pollution, both of air and water. The goal of sustainable lifestyle is to create minimum ecological footprint that is required for living and to reuse or convert waste to resources. It ensures the individual lifestyle's contribution to global warming is at its lowest ebb. Now, currently, there are many aspects of lifestyles in our cities that have serious implications on the environment and on sustainability of our cities. To put it succinctly, Mr. Chancellor, sir, our cities today are not sustainable. The major features of unsustainability of our cities are briefly reviewed. One, in the area of urban housing, we know majority of urban dwellers are in the rent-paying category. They spend a significant proportion of monthly income on housing. Since the rate of housing provision in cities lags behind that of demand for accommodation, according to Ogbomoso and ADEBOYEJO 2016, and with rising inflation, urbanites largely live in overcrowded apartments, most times with lack or inadequate facilities and services such as pipe-borne water, electricity, and waste disposal. Two, urban transport. There is high dependence on vehicular movement for day-to-day activities and hence increasing concentration of carbon emissions, thereby impacting negatively on the local city and global environment. We are saying that the urban transport situation in our cities today is very, very chaotic, to say the least. Now, the roads are full, the roads are clogged. Now, the roads can be compared with the arteries that carries blood throughout the human system. And if these arteries are blocked, what happens? There can be there can be paralysis, there can be death, there can be stroke, and all such complications. In the case of a city, the city may not, the way the city suffer paralysis is the tension you find among drivers, for example. In Lagos, we are driving in Lagos, everybody is either mad or unfortunate. Then, a typical Nigerian driver on Lagos will tell you, Jade Were, Wale Oloshi. These are the kind of things that we often witness. That plate 1 shows us the typical traffic chaos in Lagos. And the next plate 2 shows us the urban sanitation situation in many of our cities. We see that in many of our cities, mountains of refuse are springing up sporadically, and they continue to grow uncontrollably. You can imagine the health implications and the burden of urban management on the actors of the urban system. How inclusive are our cities? What is inclusive city? According to ADEBOYEJO 2011, an inclusive city is one which ensures that provision and management of urban infrastructure and services permit all users, irrespective of socioeconomic characteristics and peculiarities, to function effectively and safely. That's a small diagram. If you see an urban area, the first aspect of it you see is luxury housing. You see shopping complexes, you see good roads, and you have an illusion of a productive and affluent city. But the other side, below it, you see slums, you see squatter settlements, you see dehumanizing living conditions, and that's an evidence of non-inclusiveness. Sometimes you go to the main street, you see decently dressed, a lady coming out. By the time you go back to look at where the lady slept overnight, you discover that there are more than 10 in a single room, and they sleep using Formula 69, where somebody will face up, the next person will face down, and so on, writing 69 till the room is full. To be inclusive, therefore, a city must provide functional infrastructure and services for the large number of citizens in the slums, home for the teeming homeless on the street and under the bridge, improved urban environmental conditions, and socioeconomic services for all. Are our cities resilient? Resilience is a measure of household, city, or nation's ability to absorb shocks and stresses, according to Mariel et al. 2009. And that is the opposite of vulnerability. According to Dwelling et al. 2009, our socioecological systems, resilient cities are characterized by increased or increasing self-reliance and their capacity to manage or bounce back from stress or disastrous events. I define resilience as the ability to resist or recover from the socioeconomic, political, and environmental vicissitudes. That's according to ADEBOYEJO 2015. I conceptualize city resilience as illustrated in figures 3 and 4. This conceptualization is based on theory of bifurcation in physics as developed by Prigogine, 1976. In the first diagram, on the y-axis, you see city growth. Then the x-axis, you see time over time. City is following the normal trajectory. Now, when there is bifurcation or introduction of events, you see the city becomes unstable. That's a disequilibrium. And then a resilient city will be able to dampen the effect of this bifurcation and continue its normal growth. In the second case, a second city, the city was growing normally, then there is disturbances along the line. Then the disturbances threw the city off its trajectory, bringing it down. Now, let's illustrate further. Disturbances in African cities include poor governance that have created artificial unemployment, loss of job, delayed or non-payment of salaries, closure of universities of higher learning, particularly in university towns, persistent fuel crisis, the spread of COVID-19, and associated lockdown, all of which most often bring the economy of cities and individuals in Africa to their knees. Individuals, households, and communities in Nigeria continue to face disheartening challenges in responding to lack of basic facilities and services, which are fundamental to people and communities' well-being. The various impacts of insurgency, communal clashes, and socio-political cum-religious disturbances on the functioning of Nigerian cities are threats that communities and cities must respond to in order to sustain urban structure and functioning. In addition, Nigerian cities need to respond to the impacts of known natural hazards such as flood, ocean surge, soil erosion, spread of COVID-19, and effects of weather variability as a result of climate change. 12. My studies on urban home environment, climate change, and urban health. The premise that urban home environment provides the interface between culture, human behavior, and health within the context of well-known impacts and implications of climate change on living and construction of livelihood compels empirical consideration of the exact nature and nexus between urban home environment, human behavior, and health. Adeboyejo et al. 2003 argued that the differentiation of the urban landscape into residential densities is an inevitable consequence of urban development and a net outcome of the complex processes involving individual and family choices and preferences of housing needs, and that in several ways residential densities differ from each other, but all are important because of their impact on behavior and implications on health and well-being. Although we have about 15 published works along this area, the major findings and conclusions are that 1, there is a link between residential densities and human health. 2, the core areas of the city are distinct and recognizable residential density, which foster the spread of infectious and climate change-related diseases such as whooping cough, diarrhea, cholera, as well as various adolescent sexual and reproductive health problems, particularly sexually transmitted diseases, including HIV/AIDS. 3, the core areas of our cities being largely occupied by the low socioeconomic class and the most vulnerable segments of the population, particularly the youth and the aged, are most exposed to various impacts of climate change. 4, puritanical relationships between opposite sexes, which is an important component of indigenous cultural heritage in our cities, is rapidly being deconstructed in the minds of the youth by products of modern technology. Our cities tomorrow, visions and way forward. Mr. Vice Chancellor, sir, I have a vision of what our cities must be and what they should offer their inhabitants. I envision the following for our cities. 1, a redevelopment or renewal of the high density or core areas so that every building is accessible and all neighborhoods look like current government reservation areas, while the medium and low density areas are further improved. So many buildings are inaccessible. In some cases, you have to do triple jump before you enter into your house because of so many potholes and many disturbances and obstructions along the way. 2, in every area of our cities, of our major cities, particularly the high density areas, okay, there will be supply of regular potable water. It's a prophecy. 20 hours times 7 days electricity. All weather roads. If you believe, you say amen. Adequate security of lives and property among basic urban infrastructure and services. All developers in every area of our city will adhere unconditionally to planning regulations, particularly people not building up to the main roads or encroaching various setbacks. I foresee green and clean cities. In fact, green and clean will be objects of positive urban environmental policy and a watchword for city dwellers. There will be in our cities clear demarcation of urban neighborhood road network so that flood water, vehicular and pedestrian movements are given rights of way. Currently, the same route used by flood water is used by vehicle, is used by human beings. You know, everything in a place instead of a place for everything. In many of our neighborhoods, both flood water, pedestrian vehicles currently share the same route. On local council development authorities in Nigeria, Mr. Vice Chancellor, sir, I want to make case for the rebranding of local council development areas as local production council areas, LPCAs, since the former implies political rearrangement to take advantage of dwindling national cake and not local resource mobilization and development avenue as implied in the principles of LPCA. Challenges. For Nigerian cities to take their pride of place among community of wealthy cities, they must become places for high-quality services to producers and very competitive places for foreign and domestic investments. Nigerian cities need to become more closely networked and develop interdependencies and non-dependency relationships with other cities, both locally and internationally. There is therefore the need to provide high-quality public services and business-friendly environment to retain existing firms and also attract new ones. Without being partisan, Mr. Vice Chancellor, sir, the move by the federal and some state governments to obtain foreign loan to finance urban infrastructure in the area of railway, road construction, etc., is a step in the right direction. I give kudos to Rivers State government. Mr. Project, well done. The point is, urban infrastructure facilities and services require huge capital investment, and there is currently a monumental backlog in the provision, rehabilitation, and maintenance of these facilities in the wealth of any nation. Thus, for Nigeria to be among the top 20 developed countries tomorrow, there must be improvement in the level of provision of infrastructure facilities and services, particularly roads, electricity, and potable water, effective waste management practices, and good urban governance. The basic idea in our cities, yesterday, today, and tomorrow, is the transition of Nigerian cities to sustainability, the creation of socio-economic opportunities, and urban management practices in cities so that urban living and lifestyle is sustainable. Research gap. There are research gaps to be filled in the literature on urban and regional development in Nigeria. The issues are using case study of city-specific approach to characterize the unsustainable features of the cities, analyze the pathways of sustainable urban development, particularly opportunities and constraints with references to housing, health, transportation, water, and sanitation. Recommendations. 1. To move the cities to sustainable development level. We must bring down high birth rates in the country. 2. It is observed that most of the cities are expanding without master plan. We must provide master plan for our cities. Creation of agricultural systems within the city. 3. Since the major contributor of climate change in Nigerian cities is the release of greenhouse gases, measures must be taken to minimize the amount of greenhouse gas emission. Our individual homes should be laced with green areas and not concrete surfaces, as is in most homes today. Improve public transport and increase in pedestrianization to reduce car emission. Acknowledgement. To begin, I give all glory, honor, and adoration to the Lord Almighty, the architect and planner of my life. It is through His grace and mercy that I am what He has made me today. I am greatly indebted to so many people that have played one role or the other in my life. To my late parents, Pakola Ajayi and Mr. Debisi Clementina Adeboyejo, I am very grateful. My mother's constant supply of gari, cassava flake, and epokupa palm oil, her main articles of trade, provided the much needed energy to pursue university education with vigor and passion. Rest in eternal glory, my mother. I thank all my siblings and in-laws for standing by me at all times. You all contributed your widow's mite towards completion of my university education. In particular, I sincerely appreciate my elder sister, the mother of the family, Mrs. Mabel Kuyelu, for her love, care, and support. I cannot forget your contribution of scented clothing and foodstuff in critical times of need. Also to Mr. Emmanuel Olatunde Adeboyejo, the Dawodu of the family, thank you very much. To the Baale village head of Ilupa, my own very Jerusalem, Mr. Johnson Onomade, please stand up for recognition. Okay. Thanks for coming. Mr. Vice Chancellor, sir, Ogbomoso is my second home. Specifically, I am from Okeleri. My royal father is here present. I reverently request my royal father to kindly stand up. The Ale of Okeleri, Oba Samuel Babatunde Amao II. The Lord will honor you, sir. I say thank you to those who played a significant role in my early education, including all my primary and secondary school teachers. Late Mama Odusha, the headmistress in particular, you remain green in my memory. At the Federal Advanced Teachers College, now Federal College of Education, Dokene, I cannot forget the beneficial impacts of Mr. Onuba, then they should be Mr. Adeoye and Mr. Jowit, all of History Department, and Mr. Adu of Geography Department. Your teaching styles and display of the knowledge of the subject matter really endeared me to the subject and laid a solid foundation for my interest in urban and regional development. I want to appreciate the provost and management of the Federal College of Education for their support. The school is here in this hall, represented by no any other person than the registrar of the institution, Mr. Ovansa Ohomori. Please stand up for recognition. Thank you. At the University of Ibadan, my appreciation goes to the lecturers who made great impact on my university education. It was late Professor Mrs. B. F. Inu who paid my tuition fee for the first year on PhD program. To Professor Jumoke Afolayan, Professor C. Okolupo, Professor Ewa Awetu, Professor Stanley Okafo, I thank you all. To my PhD supervisor, please, where is Professor Bola Yeni? Oh, don't sit down here. Please, since I have this opportunity to command you, stand up and remain standing. I doff my cap. I choose to study under this erudite scholar when most of my colleagues look the other way because of his firmness and very high standards. I am glad for my choice. Please sit down, sir. God used Professor Sam Olofin of the Center of Econometric and Allied Research, SIA, who ensured I did not abandon my PhD program for financial reasons. He offered me a research assistantship, which enabled me to complete the program as there was no sponsorship. I am very grateful, sir. I know he's online watching us. I equally acknowledge Professor Onibokun of blessed memory and the Center for African Settlement Studies and Development, CASAD, for their support in years past. Professor Onibokun, the first professor of Regional Plan in Nigeria, taught me how to work under extremely tight conditions. It was more of postdoctoral training for me when I had to work with late emeritus Professor Adetoye Faniro at CASAD. At the undergraduate level, we avoided Professor Faniro for being too strict with marks. I never knew he was such an amiable person. I had the opportunity of working with late Professor Kula Adeniji of the Nigerian Institute of Social and Economic Research, NISA. Writing about him reminds me of an academic mogul, a father, and an umbrella that provided shade for so many people, and under whom so many academics thrive. You remain evergreen in my memory. It was Professor Adefemi Olokoshisi, then of NISA, but now of Afeb Babalola University, that made possible the first ever research grant I secured. I had written the proposal, but had no money to courier it to Dakar, Senegal. On informing him, without hesitation or question, he simply handed over to me the total money requested for the postage. I still enjoy the ripple effect of that grant today. Thank you very much, Uncle Femo. I never knew there was a Department of Urban and Regional Planning in LAUTECH until Professor Afolabi Adedibu, who was my PhD external examiner, tiptoed into my office at CASA to avoid being noticed by the CEO, late Professor A.G. Onibokun, and brought me a letter of temporary appointment. Little did I know he was then conducting an appointment interview for me during my PhD oral examination, as there were to me more questions than expected. Thank you, Professor Adedibu, for bringing me to LAUTECH and for making this day what it is. Professor Layi Egunjobi, for the brief spell you had with us in Europe LAUTECH, you proved beyond reasonable doubt that you are indeed a father and a stabilizer and a transformer. Professor Rom Kalilu, I am short of words to express my appreciation. God bless you richly. Professor and Dr. Mrs. Bola Ojewola made my early period in Ogbomoso less stressful while I shuttled between Ogbomoso and Ibadan. This wonderful family accommodated me free of charge for the first 7 years of my stay in Ogbomoso. There is a family friend that's still closer than biological family. I'm talking about Dickin and Mrs. Ayantoye. Thanks for being there all the time. My journey to University of Venda, Limpopo Province, South Africa was made possible by God through the instrumentalities of Professor S.B. Agbola of URP Department, University of Ibadan, and Professor Matthew Delamy of the then URP Department, University of Venda. I appreciate the support I received from international colleagues, in particular Professors Jackson Ogola and John Odio of School of Environmental Sciences, University of Venda, South Africa. To my other international and national colleagues, co-authors and students, I appreciate the working relationships, your cooperation and intellectual challenges I receive from you all. Special mention must be made of Dr. James Akuzira, Tendai Igondo, and Professor Bika. I thank you all for your support. I cannot forget the hospitality of members of staff of the Ibadan Regional Planning Benue State University, Makurdi, ably led by Dr. Sylvester Iulia, Professor Davidson Alasi, and other colleagues in that department. To the Igwe of the family, Professor of the faculty, Professor Jonathan Ogushi, I say Unsu Gmi, the Tivwe of saying thank you very much. My special thanks to Dr. Nomawen Sibiye of UNICEF, Abuja, and Dr. Omo Dubanko of UN Habitat Nairobi. It was Dr. Owen that stood by my wife during the delivery of her firstborn and organized the naming ceremony as I was out of the country then. I did not come back until the baby was 1 month old. Thank you, Brother Owens. The spiritual environment provided by the following churches and fellowship groups is greatly appreciated. They ensure spiritually warm, total growth, and balanced Christian development for me. The Ibadan Varsity Christian Union provided the forum for effective participation in God's service and Christian leadership. The alumni fellowship of the union ensured the vision is upheld. The LAUTECH interdenominational chapel, where I currently serve as the chairman governing council, gave me and my family the opportunity to be involved in the kingdom service. I thank Professor J.K. Oleke, Chairman Board of Trustees, members of the Governing Council of LAUTECH Chapel, the chaplaincy, the entire members of the chapel, the LAUTECH Joint Christian Mission, and LAUTECH Christian Community for your support in various forms towards the success of this lecture. I'm glad to still be a family member of the Light of God Missionary Society, Sebasa Limpopo Province in South Africa since 2009 today. To the set men of the church, Pastor and Pastor Mrs. Mudau, it is a wonderful experience to serve God together. To Reverend Okiki Jesu, Reverend Ogundipe, and the entire church of Winifred Alabaderu Anglican Church in Lupashon, it is a great honor to be associated with you, particularly in my capacity as the Adeboyejo. Your fervency and dedication to God's work remain an inspiration to me. Finally, I am greatly indebted to so many people here in LAUTECH, both teaching and non-teaching staff. A separate booklet will be required to list all of you. My sincere apology if I do not mention your name. Nevertheless, I want to appreciate my immediate constituency, Ibadan Regional Planning family, and the Faculty of Environmental Sciences. Thanks to all the staff and students for your support. To our immediate past Vice Chancellor, Professor A.S. Badegeshi, the Incubate Vice Chancellor, Professor Michael Ologunde, and Professor G.O.Y. Dino, Professor T.A. Thanks to you all. I am saying a big thanks to the Vice Chancellor, Best University of Technology, Professor Jeremiah Ojedino, and my good friend, the Vice Chancellor at Ajayi Crowther University, Professor Timothy Adebayo. Finally, this lecture, though prepared by me, was edited by some of my former students. To Drs. Yemi Adewoyin, Witchwater Strand, Ogunkwa David, Bells, Ademola Adeagbo, Naisa, Biola Fala, University of Kiel, Germany, I say thank you for your constructive criticism. All members of Adeboyejo Planning School, you are well recognized. Thank you for putting together a book project, a befitting first script in my honor on the occasion of my sister's birthday. That is the culture I have been working hard to inculcate. I am fulfilled. You are all appreciated. To my children, Oluwanimi and Oluwafismi, wherever you can, please stand up. I thank God for blessing me with you. Mr. Vice Chancellor, sir, ladies and gentlemen, I am indeed a favored man. For you to understand my journey to success today, I want you to briefly follow me to one village called Odoeku, off Ejiji, along Gumara Road in Kwara State, to one relatively unknown but blessed family of Ogunyemi of Igbabote compound. There you find a damsel. Please stand up. There you find a damsel in whose well-built physical frame and golden dark color dwells every spiritual adulation. She is naturally configured to exhibit wifely blessing. I am talking about no other person than my God-given golden necklace, my own wife, and mother of my children. I sincerely lack the words to express how I feel having her as a beloved wife and how to thank her for all she has been to me. The least I can say now is thank you, Funke. Thank you all for listening.
With the vision provided by the inaugural lecturer of how our cities will be and what they should offer us tomorrow, I declare the inaugural lecture closed.
While thanking you for attending, please remain standing for the academic procession to exit, please.
You led me on as we've come this far. We fixed our shoulders and determined just to